Confirm, Anand.
Yes, I started.
Okay, good evening, good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to yet another edition of CII Startup Buzz. All of you know we have CII Startup Buzz every Thursday at 5 o'clock. We've been doing this consistently over the past few months. Idea is very simple: get the best in the business to share her or his thoughts. And you will get to know in one session about that topic. If you want to see any of the past sessions, they are there on YouTube, our channel of CII for Western region. Remember, every Thursday, 5 p.m. But next Thursday, we are taking a break, a Diwali break. You should also take a break. So we'll be back again on October 30th. Today, I'm truly, truly delighted. We have such an amazing person, and I'm so happy he agreed to come and share his thoughts. Girindra has worn many hats, and I'll introduce you to him in a couple of minutes. But he's got so much experience that I'm sure all of you will enjoy what he's saying. We've just got 45 minutes with him, and at any time you have any questions, just post it in the chat. I'll take it up at the right time. I have a lot of questions. So if you don't ask, I'll keep going. And if you ask, I'll give you priority over the questions. So quick introduction of, I call him Giri. So if you don't mind, I'll call him Giri on this
Absolutely.
platform as well. He's a founder and partner at Pentathlon Ventures. Pentathlon Ventures supports and funds early stage B2B tech startups and helps them go global. All the partners in the firm have a track record of building successful B2B ventures. After their first fund, they are now on the second fund, doubling on the thesis. He's also founder of Ideas to Impact Hub, a startup ecosystem. He has been in the industry and then started this VC firm. He's associated various organizations. He's a regular speaker at international conferences, an erudite person, intellectual, and a thought leader. Thank you, Giri, for joining us today at this session.
Thank you so much, Ninda. That was very kind of you, that introduction. It's just a pleasure to be with you. I remember when I started my VC journey, you were one of the first VCs that I actually met in Mumbai, if you remember.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yes.
and I've been very thankful to yourself and some of the other members of the VC ecosystem that have helped us, along the way when we started our VC journey. And I must thank CII for this opportunity. It's a great pleasure to be here. And of course, wish you and the entire audience very happy Diwali, which is upcoming, just to get started. Yes.
Happy Diwali too. So, Giri, this is a way of giving back to the startup ecosystem by sharing knowledge. So, before I start asking you questions, maybe just 2 minutes on you as a person. IIT Mumbai, then USC, then TCS, then founding Verisoft, SQS, and then jump into VC. What happened? Why?
Okay, it was not that difficult to understand. I've been very long in the entrepreneurial journey. Initial training wise, it was mechanical engineering. I was a mechanic. There was some noise somewhere. The mechanical engineer, I graduated from IIT Bombay, did a couple of years in the US as a master's, but that's where my path diverged from the norm. I came back to India, and my entire career has been in India. Never worked in the US. All my US trips have been on business visa after that. And however, I joined TCS. TCS was probably the only game in town at that time as a CAD CAM in their CAD CAM group, which was newly found. Worked about 2.5 years there, but always wanted to start on my own. So that is how first inning was in the CAD CAM consulting space, development software on top of CAD CAM. Still call it my MBA because I didn't have a formal MBA, learned the ropes of the business. And then came the other business that you talked about, Verisoft, which was after the exit from the first one. Verisoft was a software testing business. It was a very unique idea at that time, doing testing, pure play, not doing development, just doing testing. We were one of the earliest players, and fortunately also grew to be one of the largest in that space. And when we got acquired, it was about 1,000 people in Pune that we had. And when I completely exited this company, it was a European company that had acquired us in London Stock Exchange listed. So I had a very good exposure in terms of leading India India, being part of the global management, but basically I ticked all the boxes that you want to tick as an entrepreneur. And so when it came to the third inning, it was really thinking about whether I want to start another venture, or will it be better for me to start a fund or a startup ecosystem where we could be working with a much larger number of founders. And the reason for that thinking was that even in my when I was in the earlier role, I was working very actively with the startup ecosystem in Pune. We have a very good Thai chapter, the Nurture program. I was very involved with that. And I could see that very clearly. There are a lot of entrepreneurial energy in Pune, lots of people coming to for their engineering education, for their management education, for, it was an IT hub, auto hub. So unsurprisingly, a lot of entrepreneurial energy, but not a single fund. That was what my observation was. And all the funds were in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and our founders used to be asked, why don't you come to Delhi? Why don't you come to Bangalore? And so on. So I thought that was a good thing to work on, like start a fund which was headquartered in Pune. We didn't have one. So that's how it got triggered. Obviously, there were other triggers, like you mentioned earlier, that focusing on B2B tech versus B2C, because that was also uncommon at that point. India, B2C was what was popular, and B2B was where we felt with our experience, we could build some kind of robust success. And fortunately, that got proven in Fund 1, and hence now the Fund 2. And that's where we are, where we have already started investing in Fund 2 and also getting to our final close in Fund 2. So that's where we are right now. But I hope that explains the journey.
No, and it's you had such a remarkable journey, but thank you for encapsulating it in 2, 3 minutes. So within 4 minutes of a session, we've already got a question from the audience, but I'm going to weave it into my first question. Uh, so B2C are always the poster boys in India. They get the headlines. They are all magazines. B2C founders always grab headlines. B2B are more silent. Has it changed, and why did you go to B2B? And I'll weave in a question which has already been asked. What are the specific sectors in B2B which are ripe for disruption in India?
Okay. So the first question first, which is about the B2C, obviously by the nature of the beast, right? The definition is that you're serving the consumers, and obviously the consumers need to know about these companies, and that's why B2C always gets the better publicity. Obviously, the companies are investing in that so that they become known. That's the whole game in B2C, actually speaking. Whereas B2B, you are working with a company, you're solving their problem, you're getting paid, you're doing really well, but the rest of the world does not need to know. And that's where maybe the answer to your question is why B2B appears a little more silent. In fact, that is a knock that I have on B2C companies, that it's a huge marketing spend that they have to do. And one of the things that we had thought for ourselves was that as B2B, that's not the case. You don't have to spend that much and still can be successful. On the other hand, with B2C, you spend a lot of money and still it's a winner take all. Only one or two companies can be successful. So that's where B2Bs may be silent, but it's a different game, and it doesn't need to be that in the public eye, or and need to have names that everybody knows, etc.
Great. Another question has come, which actually is part of a question I was going to ask. I'll weave it in as we go along. You met a lot of founders. And the starting point of a lot of founders is I've got this great tech and
Mhm.
big business. What is your experience on this kind of approach by founder? Are they going a blind alley, or what are the suggestions you give to make? Great tech is a good starting point, but
Mhm.
great business isn't it an entirely different ballgame?
Yeah, and I will weave that earlier audience question, which was about various sectors that you talked about, right? You asked about tech, and already there is a question about sectors. So I should weave those things in. I mean, and I know that tech, no matter great, ultimately gets commoditized, right? It's the nature of technology that keeps improving, and it gets commoditized. So what is really important is whether you're solving a problem for your customers. right? That is what matters. The business problem is critical, and that is where I think that question about sector is important, because the business problems come from various sectors like manufacturing and fintech and healthcare and edutech, and all of those kind of different areas will have their different problems. To answer the earlier question that was posed, because we are B2B tech, we go across verticals. I won't call it horizontal because we are not the infra or the deep tech or anything. We are solving problems across verticals, and we don't have any particular allocation as such. We look at wherever technology is disrupting a business to business use case. So that is what we are looking at. So hence, what the founders need to look at is, one, what problem they are solving. Hence, how will they know that unless they know the domain, correct? So beyond tech, there is always the domain knowledge that is very important, because you're solving a critical problem in that domain. If you don't know the domain, you may not know the criticality of the problem or how good your tech solution is for that. So that's one part. That's what gets you in any customer, that you're solving a particular problem for a particular customer. The next part is, once you get in, the customer relationship building, the building the credibility, the building the trust with the customer is a given in any kind of a business. That has to be there. So if you're just a narrow tech founder, if you're just interested in the tech, then you are going to miss these things, or these could be the blind spots for you, that you're not focused on the problem that you're solving, you're not focused on building the relationship with the customers and so on. So what we do, Ninad, in our fund is we always look for a mix of all of these three in the founder team. Maybe one person has to be a tech guy, but is there another person who's the domain expert? Is there another person who's really has the business savvy, has the has the aptitude of going to the customers, talking to them, and building trust with them and so on. So hence that mix in the founder team is what we look for.
Okay, great. There are a couple of questions, but I'll start right from the beginning. I wanted to ask a question on, this is more generic, not connected to your fund or anything, but more generic. Traditionally, India has been known as being successful for building for services.
Mhm.
Yeah. And people have been always happy getting large service orders. Nothing good or bad, but that's been the traditional mindset. Do you think this mindset is changing in the B2B format? And more importantly, and I'll even the question is, people believe that Indian buyers are very slow in their decision making. So if you have a great B2B product, fantastic, Indian market is tough to get scale.
Mhm.
Fact, there's a question in the chat also that they have longer sales cycles and complex customer relationship. And what are the key strategies? So let me combine all of this. You
Yes,
know,
yes.
so uh, service mindset, is it changing? How does it impact B2B? Indian marketplace, is it longer sales cycle, complex? All of this combined, where do you see the
Yes,
point? I mean,
yes,
I'm combining three, four things,
yes.
interest of time, because I know I
Right,
won't
right.
agree.
It's a long question. There will be a long answer, I guess. So first of all, yes, India had a services mindset to start with, for the simple reason that we were serving markets which we didn't know. Correct? We didn't know what the US market required, and hence we had to do whatever was asked of us, and that is how we built the capability. Even that turned into ultimately 50% of the US corporation CIOs being Indian. Correct? So that learning brings you to the next step. Now, everything happens on the shoulder of whatever has gone before. So once we became tech savvy, the initial wave of B2C products that happened in India was because the founders knew the Indian market. They could address the Indian market. So it is very important to know the Indian market. And that is why maybe we are branded as, having the services mindset and so on. And that, as soon as the B2C businesses started, the product started, they were serving Indian markets. And of course, they all worked. So knowing the market is very important. That was that initial step that was required. But what I would say today is that typically all customers ultimately need solutions. Correct? They would want the thing to work for to solve their problem. So services can be part of that solution. It is not. I don't see that as a problem at all. In fact, what even in the AI world, what is happening now, if you see, it is productized services. I mean, if you see a lot of AI application building and solutioning is happening through services companies for all the large enterprises. And what they're doing is essentially building productized services. And in fact, in some cases, they have a human in the loop as well. So there is AI agent and there is a human agent as well, because ultimately that is what guarantees a reliable outcome, which the customer is looking at. So I would say that our companies are being innovative. There is no question about in my mind. They are being innovative and they are targeting to solve the problems that the companies would have. Now, the question that you asked probably, and I'm again trying to think of all the various angles that you asked, whether that inhibits scale. So if you're thinking services, and hence you're talking about headcount based services, then whether that inhibits scale. To my mind, productized services is a good answer for that, because you are productizing, you can have ability to scale, but you're also with having this the human agent in the loop, ensuring the reliable outcomes as well. What is actually going to cause scale is whether you're able to offer that same solution to a larger number of customers. And in that sense, what should happen is, instead of delivering to various different kinds of customers, if you are focused on a niche in one particular segment, so that there is much better chance of reusability of your solution, and also the strong word of mouth that goes in that one sector, that way you can scale. So I kind of separating out this, the services angle and the scale angle. If you remove that headcount based thing set or mindset, then you can separate these things out. You can have a services component in your productized solutions, but on the other hand, if you're focused on a niche, you can get scale also because of your solution being a fit for that particular segment.
What a remarkable answer. I hope all of the participants heard what you said. Get away from headcount based models or mindset, is the word he used. You're already getting applause there. Also, productized services important and niche products also. Fantastic, Giri. Thank
And
you.
I should add there, I mean, you asked about Indian customers. I forgot to answer that part. That was the second part of the question. And I have to say, that I must know, I think you must have seen it as well, that the adoption of technology has certainly improved significantly over the last, few years or so. Earlier, yes, they were all, we would talk about Indian customers not adopting technology, but that has certainly changed. Indian enterprises have been not only deploying tech, adopting tech, but also going for tech products as opposed to customized solutions. That change is also very much seen, and they prefer now to get get a product from a third party rather than trying to build customized solutions, which was the earlier norm. So I think there is significant improvement in that. The challenge that remains, as all of us know, is the pricing part of it. That is a challenge, because Indian customer will demand very, very cost effective solutions. But in terms of adopting itself, I see that improving significantly. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a question by Debashis exactly on this point, price and value sensitivity in Indian. And so you've responded to. There's a question which is very direct, and I want to just ask it. Rohit Joshi is asking, what do investors like Pentathlon? You can give it a broad brush as well. Look, evaluating B2B tech startups, because you're, what do you look for?
Sure. Okay. So clearly, by focusing on B2B tech, we were making life easier for ourselves. See, you have to look at Pentathlon as a new venture capital firm which has come about 5 years back. We just are in the fund two of our journey. From fund one has been deployed in fund two. So we also think of ourselves as a startup, and like any other startup, there has to be a niche that you must focus on, and there has to be a need for that in the market. And secondly, you should have the ability to be able to fulfill that need. And that is where I said that we made our life easier by saying B2B tech, because that was what our background was. Number one, we had run B2B businesses, and not just me, all the other partners in our fund have the same kind of background. So we have run our businesses, we have expanded in India, we have gone to global customers, raised funds, exited, all of those kind of things. So we have that background. And luckily for us, you know, earlier B2B was a new thing, but now nobody is, actually people understand that B2B is a better business. That switch has also happened over the last 4 or 5 years. So for us, it's a very good thing because now we can talk to founders who are focused on B2B, and those discussions are completely different. That's what founders tell us, that the discussions are completely different when we are talking to them, because we are talking out of our experience, and we can help them with even the certain operational things, recruitment of team members, those kind of things also we have helped with. What kind of partners that you should have both in India as well as especially outside India, what kind of partners would help you with your GTM, all of those kind of operational things, MISs, what kind of matrix need to be tracked on the B2B tech, all of that is a very different kind of a discussion that we could have than somebody with a different background. Of course, every background has its own strengths, and we play to our strength, as any startup should do. That's what we are also doing. Now, in terms of what kind of founders that we look for, I mentioned in my first answer, I think that we look for a mix. It has to be a mix of technology knowledge, because that's the biggest disruptor. It has to be a domain knowledge expertise, because that's the problem that you're trying to solve. And then the business hustle, the savvy of going after customers and ensuring that your business takes and so on. So we look for the founder mix is very important, especially at the seed stage that we are investing in, obviously, because at the seed stage, they have identified a problem, they have come up with a solution. But as you know, the one constant in the early startup journey is pivots. Things are going to change. If somebody gives me a 5-year plan, I know for sure that anything else can happen but that plan. That plan is not going to happen. Anything else can happen. So hence, founders become very important, that they should be able to learn what is happening. They should be able to listen to what people are telling them and accordingly navigate their way. Of course, it is very important that we look at the problem that they are trying to solve. We know that there will be later on adjacencies and so on. So we have to look at the entire scope of the space that they're getting in. And we cannot have all the knowledge of that space. So we do talk with experts in our ecosystem. Luckily, we have our investor base, which is also of successful entrepreneurs. So we rely on them to vet those, so know what the space is, and if the solution is good or not. So all of these things are vetted. First, the problem statement, the solutioning for that, along with the founder mix. So those are all the things that we look at.
So, Giri, let's look at the future a little bit. There's one question, and then I'll add another one after that.
Mhm.
What B2B tech trends are you
Mhm.
excited over the next 12 to 18 months? So let's take a
Okay.
narrow window of 12 to a very nice specific question. Uh,
Okay, got it. I mean, I
these are
should tell you that even in our fund one, we were calling ourselves B2B SaaS. Okay. In fund two, we called ourselves B2B tech. Now, why is that? Of course, 3 or 4 years back, SaaS was the big thing, because these old models were very interesting for the COVID period that we went through. Everybody was working from home, so cloud was important. Deploying on cloud was important. Working on cloud was important. All of that was SaaS, and all these SaaS mechanisms were very popular. Even then, we were noticing, Ninad, that the classic SaaS of seed-based pricing and all that was going away. Even the Indian customer is actually looking for transaction-based use-based, usage-based pricing. So we were already moving from classical SaaS, and we were happy with that. Ultimately, what customer wants happens. So in that same journey, we also found that, okay, you're building SaaS with the data that you're getting, but who's responsible for the quality of the data that you're getting? Who's looking at that? And that is being done by sensors, right? So somebody is building sensors. So you could say that I'll use third-party generic sensors and build that, but then sometimes that data quality itself is the core of your solution that you're providing. If that is the case, then hardware becomes a part of it, and hence we changed to B2B tech instead of B2B SaaS. Now we have companies that are related to manufacturing that are building those sensors, which create the data for the analytics to be done, and so on and so forth. Now that's so far, what happened in fund one, what happened in fund. Now the biggest thing in the next 18 months is obviously AI. I mean, there's no question about that. And within AI, we know that earlier it was AI ML. In our fund one, most of the companies were doing AI ML. Last year it was Gen AI. Now it is agentic AI. All of that is happening, and it is a very, very interesting question, because as a fund, you are investing for the next 5 to 10 years. correct? So what is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 is a question of life and death. Now, one could say, for example, that AI is going to rule the world. Everybody will agree. If I ask this question, everybody will say, yes, it is going to rule. The interesting question is whether it is going to happen in 1 year or 3 years or 10 years. And that can become life and death for a fund like us, right? If something that doesn't happen in 1 or 3 years but happens in 10 years could still be a problem. And to be honest, we have seen that. We have seen that earlier in the internet period, that today, of course, internet is, in everything that we do. Without internet, we cannot survive. That was the vision in the late 90s. But we still had to go through a bubble of internet and the bust of the internet boom. And that is after that, only after a couple of years did the internet come back again. And then we want, all of us got onto the internet bandwagon. So what we worry about is that same thing going to happen with AI? Is there too much hype? Because all said and done, I do think that, like I said earlier, the reliable outcomes, is AI able to provide the reliable outcomes that enterprises want? Suddenly you get some MIT report saying 95% of the AI projects are failing. Now there is always this version 1 problem. Of course, if it will get better, but whether that reliability of outcomes will happen. Secondly, whether the costs of the AI solutions, we talk about energy usage and all of that, will there be solutions for that? So all of these things are definitely there to worry about. But what we think is that ultimately what we are focusing on, as I said earlier, is B2B use cases. We are focused on the use cases, and technology may change, but we would rely on our founders finding the right technology to build solutions for those use cases. And sometimes it may sound that we are talking about those same boring use cases which were, but I actually am happy that these are the use cases which were there 50 years back, which will remain there 50 years later. And if we can find solutions for that tech, then those will have longevity, those will have the perfect use of AI. We don't even worry that much whether they are AI first or not, whether they are using a combination of Gen AI and some other technologies. Ultimately, our focus is on finding the solutions. So in the next 18 months, what's going to happen? Yes, there is a lot of AI that is going to happen. Whether it will go the internet way, whether something else will happen, we will watch and see. But as far as we are concerned, we think that focusing on the use cases is the right thing to do, because that's where those solutions are going to be required, and they will use the technology that is required to build those solutions.
So, I'm glad you spoke about AI because it was going to come up in any case. It's the
Yes.
elephant in the room
Mm.
and best address. So, if on an intersection, you're in B2B tech space investment presently,
Mm.
the rapid changes of AI, where is the opportunity for Indian startups?
Good question. Very good question. So what again I think is that the tech that AI, the basic tech that is being built, is there are lots of US companies that are building the tech and so on, and that is where a lot of funding is going. So in fact, lot of questions that come to us are that AI seems to be a Gen AI, or the Gen AI seems to be a large giant tech kind of a play, because who will else will have the resources to build those LLMs, who will have the data, who will have the GPUs and those kind of things. And that is where the answer that I gave earlier was, our focus is what can be built in India. In our thesis, what we are talking about is catching the Indian startups young and then taking them international. So the whole focus is what can Indian companies build, and that is where we think that these companies will build all those business to business use cases related solutions. So they will, if you look at the entire stack, there is the GPU stack, there is the LLM, these are the industry-wide layer and the company layer. So we are advising our companies to focus on those layers where their domain knowledge can be the moat. A very interesting aside here, and I'd written that last year in one of my articles on Gen AI, that because Gen AI is kind of commoditizing the technology building itself, the product building itself, the domain knowledge becomes much more important. And hence I'd said that the founders in this age will actually be 40 plus in age, because all the other things are fine, but domain has no shortcut. You've got to spend those 10, 15 years, 20 years in the industry for you to know those nooks and corners of that space. So I feel that that would probably be the strength of Indian startups, that they would have domain knowledge based modes. They will look at the criticality of the problem. They'll be able to find the solutions, and absolutely using the best of the technology, but solving for specific problems in the business to business space.
Great. I mean, the questions are flowing, Giri. I am not able to ask questions, but let me take some of the what I think are interesting. And this could be a short answer.
Yeah.
Santosh is asking, how do you assess founder market fit in the B2B tech space?
I think I probably answer that, because we are looking for founders who have steeped into their domain, who are kind of go-to people in that layer. They must know, and we actually ask this question: what is your unique insight? That you must have something unique about what you're trying to do. Ultimately, for any startup, the differentiation is what matters, right? You must stand out. And the founder, we ask the founders this question: what is your unique insight? It typically has to come from the domain. What's the problem that they're solving, and what kind of technology that is available today that makes it possible to solve that problem? So those are the kind of unique insights we look for. I hope I answered that question there.
Yeah. So one question is on open source. I mean, what is your take on adopting open source versus proprietary technologies? Is that, I mean, I don't know how relevant it is in today's time.
There is some thinking that companies should build their own foundation models and their proprietary solutions. But like I mentioned the layers earlier, it is absolutely fine to use the bottom layers, that's the stack that I talked about, which is open source. You use that, but what is differentiating is important. So you build that on top of that, essentially building SLMs instead of LLMs. You're doing some fine tuning and so on. That is where your domain knowledge comes into play, and ultimately that will allow you to provide better solutions even than the tech giants. You can easily understand that if a large amount, big LLM is solving a small problem, it is likely to hallucinate. But if you are focused on that small problem with your small language models of fine tuning, you have a chance of building a better solution than even the tech giant. That's what all startups should be focused on. So I think that there is an opportunity. Yes. For example, you build something for a company. It is possible that you have industry knowledge and you go to the industry layer, you kind of use data in a federated manner and solve for the industry that is slightly bigger. But as far as our Indian startups are go, I think that is the better solution for them to do. Build on top of what is available in the market, but make your differentiation in those layers above that, those layers.
What are, you've been in this for many years now, and you've seen a lot of founders pivoting, changing, successful, not so. What are the top two, three mistakes founders make? It's not about mistakes make and they go down. I mean, they shut down, but of course they make mistakes, pivot. If you can name even top two or three, or maybe one also, top mistakes which founders make.
So one you mentioned earlier, that thinking of tech
Yeah,
as the going the main thing. So
correct.
that is definitely where we I would say that tech is good, but the problem that you're solving for the customer is a good thing. The second thing also came into passing in my talk is about being able to listen. So the one thing that we know is that the startup will have to pivot. Nobody sticks. No, 0% of the startups would have stuck to the same plan that they had on day one. Why did that happen? Because when the rubber hits the road, when you actually go to the market tells you something, and listening to that is the second thing that I would like. Obviously, it is a mix of both. I mean, there has to be persistence. There has to be your own thoughts of what is going to work, and it may be different from what is happening now. So the other thing that could go wrong is that you are listening to everybody and trying to do everything for everybody. That also could be a mistake. So there is this balance between persistence and also listening to the market, and that analysis should tell you what market is your sweet spot where you could have a leadership opportunity. So we talk about TAM, SAM, SOM, and all of that. And when I started in my VC journey, the first realization was that a small company that's starting now, what is the what is the significance of the TAM in it? If it's a 50 billion TAM, why would it come to this company? Somebody else will take it. And hence we had come up with something called serviceable leadable market. Can you find a niche in which you can lead? So that is something that you can focus on, and then you can go on to the adjacent spaces to expand your footprint. So those are the kind of things that founders have to be very cognizant about, that they are learning from the market, but also deciding something that combines their expertise, their capability, and finding that sweet spot. It is difficult, it is not easy, but then nobody said entrepreneurship is easy, right? So it's
So true. And I was about to come to this question, and you already said nobody said entrepreneurship is easy. And Santosh Kotnis is asking, what's the hard truth about B2B startups that founders often ignore? One is that it is not easy. Is there anything else you want to say that before jumping? Remember, entrepreneurship is not easy, is what you said. Is there
yeah.
anything else?
One of the things that B2B has to worry about is the adoption by the enterprises. These are typically large companies and they take their time. So that is, I mean, I've touched upon this in multiple points, that identifying a sector for yourself where there is a strong word of mouth increases that top of the funnel. But you have to realize that the enterprises are going to take their time. It is not going to be B2C kind of a sale. So that is something that that has to be kept in mind. And you give yourself the best possible chance by being in a niche where your skills or your capability is the best fit for the problem that you're trying to solve.
So Ganesh Chandbag is asking, how do you assess success in a B2B startup investment? What is your measure of success?
Oh,
Is it
when we are selecting a company,
no? Let's say you invest today after maybe 3 to 5 years time.
obviously, ultimately, success for any company is the growth, the margins, the profitable growth. Ultimately, at the young stage, they have to be growing at a significant percentage month or month, because that's what a startup, a funded startup especially, is supposed to do. But eventually, there has to be a path to profitability as well. That's where they are going to sustain. So it cannot be indefinitely that you're just burning money to get customers. So there has to be a path to profitability. By path to profitability, I mean that if you choose to, you should be able to pull the levers and become profitable. But if you choose to use the money to get growth, that is fine. That choice should be with you. That is what I mean by path to profitability. So that would be, in my mind, a good successful startup.
So viewers and participants, we are around 5:36. We have got exactly 9 minutes. Grab this opportunity of asking whatever you want to ask to Giri. He's giving straight answers, very deep answers. You will not get this opportunity again. Please go ahead and grab it. I'm going to take 3, 4 questions and then start winding down around 5:45. Just a quick response to this person had asked some time back. What are the key architectural choices in early B2B? Now, when he says architecture, I don't know, he means technical or business. Maybe you could touch on the business part and
Business part would be my preference,
and
because I may not be able to answer the technology part. And this is a interesting question because B2B can also have lot of flavors. So in B2B also, for example, we are talking about large enterprises, and I talked about the problems. And the initial traction typically for B2B is through founder connects. So the part of being knowing the domain and knowing the industry is also that you have initial founder connects, and that's how you get those initial customers. So because otherwise enterprise sale is always going to take longer. There are other models. For example, B2 small b, as we call it, which is selling to the smaller enterprises, or B2 B2C, or there is an interesting variation of that, B2C to B also. I'll come to all of that. The B2B is where you're selling to smaller enterprises, and that has to be a PLG kind of an approach, correct? I mean, you cannot be going, to each of these customers and so on. So that is where product-led growth becomes very important. That you must be able to sell at scale, even if there is some churn. You must be able to sell at scale and quickly get to revenue. So that's the B2 small b model. So we have seen some companies which are selling to the smaller shops rather than the larger enterprises. Those sales have to be quick. So our norms for those customer acquisitions are different from the larger enterprises. In the larger enterprises, you have an opportunity to expand once you get in. But in this B2B, you have to get larger number of, it's a market share versus wallet share. In India specifically, I would think B2, B2C is a very important one, because unlike most other countries, India is not, I think you'll agree, a do-it-yourself kind of a country, right? So just you throw technology at them, they are not going to adapt. And I'll give you multiple examples. For example, in fintech, you have something called banking correspondents. In agri-tech, you have village-level entrepreneurs, nurses, teachers. All of these intermediaries are required to take a product to the end beneficiary and make sure that they benefit. And I do believe that while PLG kind of things works, empowers the end customer, that the Gen AI kind of technology can empower these intermediaries, and that could be a good solution for India in more than one ways. So first of all, any technology that comes up expands the footprint. And Gen AI specifically has brought non-English speaking people into the footprint. So a lot of them should be able to get the benefit, but they will not get the benefit by directly using the app. So have to be people who handhold them. That human touch is provided in that final mile for the four sectors that I gave examples for. So that is the B2, B2C angle, which may be more important in India than in the other countries also. Very interestingly, we talk about Gen AI being a risk for people losing their jobs in the technology industry. But I do feel that this, the human touch part that I talked about could be those alternative job opportunities that will allow these people to take technology to the end beneficiaries. So B2, B2C could be very important for India. The B2C2B model, if that can be considered as an architecture from a business point of view, is especially good for developer tools, for example, that you are initially selling to individuals who use it for their own benefit, but they find it good and then they bring it to their companies. So that kind of a go-to-market can also happen quite well for B2B, going through a community of, say, let's say, developers, and this could apply somewhere else also. So I hope that kind of answers the architecture question as far as the business GTMs go. Yeah.
I'll take last one or two questions. What is the trade-off? This is asked in the. So I'm not getting a chance, Giri, to ask my personal questions. I'll ask them separately when I meet you.
No, no, please do. I mean, your question will benefit everybody also.
I like to give some priority to. And this is an interesting question. What is the trade-off between speed of development and long-term sustainability or maintainability of business? Is there a trade-off, or there's no trade-off? One should follow one path.
I mean, I'm just uh, thinking as I'm speaking here. Initially, when we are trying to find your place in the market, you're exploring, correct? And then you're working for different kind of things and seeing where what works and so on. So that is the place where the speed is important, because you're trying to address different kinds of problems. You want to very quickly find out whether you are getting some traction or not, and so on. So that is where the speed is important. But once you find your sweet spot, I think the focus has to be completely on the customers and how you can sustain your business there. So I think the answer to that question is in the stage that you are at. You should explore things first, but very quickly get to some kind of a niche where you have traction based on the need and your ability to address that need, and then stick very much to a sustainable model in that space.
Okay, great. I just want to dial down on kind of mentioned about PLG, product-led growth,
Mhm.
in one of your comments. Just a quick comment again on that. Product-led growth, is it an abused word, or is it something which should be implemented with care? What has been your experience?
Uh, for the kind of customers that I talked about, B2B, and it applies to B2C also, there is no option but to have PLG, because you just don't have the wherewithal to talk to each one of them, to sell the product to companies like you do in enterprise sale. So that is, a must there. For the B2C to B model also, or B2B to C, all of these PLG will be critical. But for typical enterprise sales, it's not. So enterprise sale is what is the comprehensiveness of the solution, how it is addressing the entire problem of the customer, and so on. So PLG has its place. I wouldn't know whether it is abused or somewhere else or no. I have no comment on that. But it has its place in certain segments that I talked about. Yes.
PLG has its place. That's good to hear, reassuring. When I meant abuse, I meant that it goes around with my first question, which is great tech is not equal to great
Mhm.
business.
Mhm.
Great tech I'll have PLG, I will do business. That
Mhm.
doesn't happen, right, Giri?
Yeah, yeah, correct, correct.
Okay, great. I'm going to wind it up by just one or two questions. We are at 5:44, and I have just two, three short questions for you,
Sure,
Giri.
sure.
What are, if you have to wind down the discussion with top lessons for startup founders, what are
Mhm.
the lessons they should always bear in mind? Whether you're a business of 10,000, 10 crores, or 100 million, what are the
Mhm.
founders?
Okay. Uh, Well, I'll try to address it both as a founder, having been a founder, as well as now an investor, and what we look for. So I do feel that young companies, uh, since you asked the entire range, the young companies do need to focus on one particular niche that they can address. That's where their chance of beating the larger companies is, and that's what I did with my software testing business, and that's what we look for when early stage founders come to us and say that they're trying to do something. If they're trying to do too many things, a very interesting example, one of our companies is a platform for ML, machine learning model building. First they came to us, they were saying, oh, our technology can be for any sector. And we didn't invest into them. The next time they came 1 year later saying, oh, now you're focused on financial companies. And that made sense, although the technology remains the same. And that repeats, this story repeats, case after case. So knowing your niche, where you enter as a startup is very important. I wouldn't know about the 100 million part, about what you do, because there it's a different play altogether. So assuming that I have more focused on my own journey as well as seed stage, I'll stick to that part rather than talk about the more mature companies, if that is okay.
Sure. And, just some non-technical questions. If you had a chance to meet someone from the B2B tech space in India or across the world, who would that person be? Just one person you had a chance to meet.
Oh. Let me take another question. I'll keep thinking about that one. Yes.
This is the last one is tougher than this, huh?
Okay, I see.
So, to, today's Thursday, Friday morning, you wake up and you have a newspaper. I'm assuming you read a newspaper and not. What is the headline you would like to see tomorrow morning? The dream headline.
Pre-med. Okay, now I have an answer for the first question.
You're
So
good.
Sridhar Bembu is somebody I have not been able to meet so far.
Oh,
I would love to meet him.
great.
And he's
If you meet him, call me. I'll also come across with you.
so he has done a fantastic job without taking the typical VC route and so on, and he has built excellent B2 business sitting out of not only India but in a small village in India that is very close to my heart. Even the tagline of our company is actually distributing the future evenly of ideas to impacts, and we want to see that Pune had its first fund when we started it, and what happens next. So we have investors from Hubli, we have investors of Surat, and I travel to all kinds of places because that's where we feel new opportunities are going to come from. Correct. So that's so Sridhar Bembu is an epitome of that. So the answer to that first question would be that. If I would. Now the second question is what would be the headline that I would like to see tomorrow? That was the second question, right?
Correct. If you want, I mean, if you can talk about if it's only on B2B tech, also it's fine. Headline.
Mm-hmm.
It, well, it gets very general. Or whatever you want to say.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Dream
Uh,
headline. Put it there.
Sorry.
A dream headline. Something very, very futuristic, whatever.
Um, to be honest, I mean, some of these, like I said, the future. I mean, okay, I talk about the tagline, which is distributing the future evenly. It came from a quote of William Gibson, which said that the future is already here. It is just not distributed evenly. So what
Okay.
you're talking about is that, what headline? It is actually already happening. What I would like to see is Indian companies finding their space in the global startup ecosystem. It doesn't mean that we have to do everything, but we do our stuff. But that takes us to a leadership position into what we are trying to do. So certainly, I think that India will have its share of global B2B category leaders. And whatever story we have built in, say, Jam, Mobile, India Stack, all of that should play in the adoption of AI as well. So maybe we will not be the tech standards of AI, but certainly the building business models that work in India at scale, for our diverse and remote markets has to have a global play. And I would really like the headlines to be, some of these companies doing that globally. That's what I would like to see. But to my point earlier, it is already happening gradually. It's not even in the future that much.
Well, yes. So Indian B2B tech startups become global leaders. That's partly what you want to say.
Yes, yes,
Hope
yes.
that happens very soon. Thank you, Giri. We have spent 49 minutes chatting. I didn't even realize how it went by. You made such very interesting and, more importantly, very specific questions, responses to a lot of questions. Very insightful, erudite as usual, and informative. Thank you, Giri, for coming on this platform, sharing your thoughts. This is a thought sharing, session from CII. We want leaders like you, and hope leaders
Yes.
like you come and spend your time and share your thoughts. So thank you
Yeah.
again.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for inviting me. Thought sharing is exactly the right word that you've used. I myself would be happy to learn things from the audience, get good questions. If I cannot answer some particular question, that's really my takeaway because I go back and have to think about it. So I would definitely love this opportunity to talk to you. And I hope some of these answers did satisfy the questions that were asked. And if it didn't, please feel free to keep in touch with me. I would be very happy to engage with you on those questions that I've not been able to answer because that's a takeaway for me as well.
Sure. Seeing the responses, people are putting applaud and also putting thumbs up signs. So it shows that people have enjoyed the session. Thank you, Giri. And ladies and gentlemen, with this, we wind down today's session on CI Startup Buzz. Remember, it's every Thursday, but not next Thursday. It's Diwali break. Our next session will be on 30th of October. Every Thursday, 5 p.m., we bring you the best in the business. Today, Giri has shared so many thoughts. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again, Giri, for joining us.
Thanks, Nina.
Thank
And
you.
thanks, everyone. Bye.